Greetings, dear friends. Hello, Diana.
Hello.
Friends, this episode will be dedicated to a topic that has been troubling many people for quite a long time. And naturally, it bothers us too. Why? Because we frequently, or rather very often, receive questions regarding education, specifically how to build relationships with a child who has no desire to learn, no desire to go to school, who constantly argues with you, refuses to do things, and so on. To delve deeper into this matter and provide more comprehensive answers to your questions, we have invited a guest. Today, our project's guest is Associate Professor and Candidate of Pedagogical Sciences, Konstantin Rybachuk. Hello, Kostya.
Greetings.
One of the main reasons, or rather the primary reason why people seek consultation with a psychologist, is the topic of relationships. And one of the most common requests from parents is, help us, we have a problem with our child. And as soon as you start getting to the bottom of the issue, you see that the problem actually is, you will always hear, my child doesn't want to study, and we always end up arguing before doing homework. Parents are already asking, tell me, what medications should I take so that I don't get killed by a heart attack and I don't kill my child, because valerian pills don't work on my wife anymore. And many parents actually admit we have to stay late at work. Honestly, I stay late at work so that my spouse will be the first to start doing lessons with this child. In other words, the child's education has turned into a real nightmare for the family. The child skips classes, doesn't complete assignments, he sells cigarettes at school. How we make him study or make him interested in learning? So when I hear all these comments, I can see an obvious absurdity in this situation. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. When parents say, my child doesn't want to study, I have a counter question. What exactly does your child not want to study? Do you know what children learn at school nowadays? What in fact does education give to children? Kostya, I'd like to ask you this question as someone who's been working in the education system for many years.
What does the modern education system give? The modern education system provides 90% of information that will never be applied in life.
Wait, say the number again. How much?
90% of information that will never be applied in life.
90% of information that is entirely unnecessary.
Right.
Then what are we doing at school?
And here comes the counter question. What are we spending 10 to 12 years of our lives on? Taking numerous exams, tests, doing assignments, and everything else.
For me, the strongest part of the phrase is 10-12 years of our lives. What are we wasting them on?
Well, that's not all. The modern education system gives us 89% of children with psychological disorders. The modern education system provides us with 93% of school graduates who suffer from acquired or chronic illnesses. And the modern education system takes away 98% of genius. That's what the modern education system provides.
You mean our children are born geniuses? We are all born geniuses.
Yes, and there is solid evidence for that. A few years ago, well, not so long ago in our understanding, psychologists from NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, conducted very interesting studies on genius among children aged 4 to 6 years. The percentage of genius among the 1,600 children they tested was 98%. When they conducted similar studies with the same children 5 years later, at the age of 10, the percentage of genius dropped to 30. When they conducted another study with the same children at the age of 15, the percentage of genius was 12%. But when they conducted similar studies with adults, the percentage of genius constituted only 2%. It begs the question, how did we go from 98% to 2%?
Well, we've really put a lot of effort, judging by the numbers.
It's a very interesting question, and I think we will definitely look into it. I mean, there is a clearer system here, and the answer lies precisely in the word system. Most people don't realize that the modern education system is artificial and well controlled from the outside. I didn't misspeak, and our esteemed viewers heard it right. The education system is artificially created and well controlled from the outside.
Then why do we need such an education system at all, if we have such results? I mean, children are sick, children are physically impaired, and what do we eventually get from geniuses? Mediocrity? Or something even worse?
Idiots.
Idiots?
We get an average idiot.
So what's the purpose of all this?
You know, I've just connected these facts with my own observations, with what I hear during consultation. And I come to the conclusion that education today has turned into an act of violence against children. And it's great that we have just said that, because I'd like parents to hear what in fact they are worried about when being concerned that their children don't want to study. But what does the child not want to study? Indeed, it raises the question, what does the child not want to study? But, you know, I have another question that goes a bit further, and we really need to figure it out. Why do parents worry so much that their child doesn't want to study? Why do they worry so much about their child getting an education, and not just any education, but the best education? And what kind of education is considered the best today? I've talked about this topic a lot with many parents. I'm a parent myself, and I myself have gone through the education system. And if we honestly answer this question, it will sound like this: education is needed to obtain a specialization. And specialization is needed to earn money, and money is needed to survive. In other words, education today is necessary for survival. The best education is one that allows you to earn more money and grants you a higher status in society. In other words, money and power, which are the two main values of today's consumer society. And so, parents stereotypically view education as a springboard, or let's say a condition that will allow their children to integrate into society in the best possible way and become more significant.
But it doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work any longer.
Well, let's again honestly look at the realities of our day. It doesn't work. I don't know how many 20 or 30 years ago this stereotype stopped being a reality, that a good secondary or technical education, higher education, or multiple degrees guarantee you a successful job, a high salary, social status, and the like. Let's look at the realities of our life. A person with an incomplete secondary education can become a millionaire.
And there are many examples like that.
Again, if we base it on the data that you, Kostya, presented, then it's clear that a person didn't have time to complete the education curriculum, which would turn them into an idiot.
Yes, their high percentage of genius remains.
Exactly. And if we go back to the question of what parents actually want when persistently sending their child to school, then to university and so on, it's to ensure their child loses his or her genius. That's me putting it mildly, although I prefer Kostya's formulation, to ensure the child becomes an idiot. And at what cost? All these scandals. Honestly, it's shocking for me as well. I mean, a parent doesn't want to go home because they'll have to deal with this. To make their child sit down and do homework, right? Or this question about medications, it's really shocking to me.
Indeed.
Well, as for medications, I can tell you even more. From 2014 to 2021, there is publicly available statistics that can be verified. The number of antidepressants prescribed to children aged 5 to 12 increased by 40% from the age of 5, not 15, when they've already gone through some small school of life, but ages 5 to 12.
By the way, this fact confirms that for children, it's no less a nightmare than it is for parents.
It's a huge stress.
It's much more. It's much more.
Children cannot express it, but they understand that they are practically entering an aggressive environment. They don't know how to behave in it because of their lack of life experience, so to say. However, they understand that the environment is aggressive and it significantly affects the child, perhaps even much more than an adult, because again, a child has no understanding of what is it all for, why he is actually there, why his parents forcibly sent him there, why they are forcing him to study there and to study at home. The child just doesn't get the whole picture. Why is it all for? He just doesn't get it. As for the parents, there is also an interesting aspect. Parents act quite reasonably. They act conventionally. I mean, if 20 years ago higher education provided at least some competitive advantage or additional opportunities, now it doesn't. Today, as Diana mentioned, the modern education system merely prepares individuals for getting a job. In other words, specialization is ultimately meant to secure a job for a person. But in this case, the education system gives an illusory competitive advantage, precisely illusory. Why? Because acquiring one or even several higher education degrees does not guarantee anything to the individual. Moreover, as for modern technology, we can see that with the advent of technical progress, then computerization and now even more artificial intelligence and jobs performed by complex computing machines based on AI, people are almost unnecessary there. Or their minimal presence is required merely to oversee the process, maybe with some minor interventions.
Not to interfere with the machines doing their job.
Not to interfere with the machines doing their job. By and large, although it may sound unpleasant, and I believe many educators will try to criticize me, but the modern education system, starting from kindergarten, where children begin to acquire some basic skills, to preparatory classes and ending with university, has all turned into a buffer zone between childhood and the labor market, nothing more.
We've addressed the motivation of parents, right? What motivates parents to make their children study? It's more or less clear. There are hidden motives, there are explicit ones, and there are ones that parents don't even realize. But can that be a motivation for a child to want to go to school and study? Of course not. I often hear from parents, our child engages in peddling at school. In other words, they are complaining about the child. Yes, because when the child comes home, they see that their educated mother, who honestly and diligently goes to work every day, just as she honestly and diligently obtained her higher education, but she can barely make ends meet, and the father works 2 or 3 jobs trying to support the family. Then the child looks at this not-so-trendy jacket or sneakers. Or instead of doing homework, he's thinking about where to get money for a new phone because all the cool guys in the class already have one. Well, he doesn't, because their educated parents can't keep up with all these trendy trends in clothing, gadgets, and everything else. And this interests him more than physics and math, and that should be understood. And then this child, why does this happen? Because this child is bombarded with information from all the gadgets about even cooler guys, those with guitars on stage, all in tattoos, ripping off their shirts and literally turning on entire stadium of fans. That's the success. That's the fame. The whole world talks about them. But who talks about my educated mom? Who even knows about her at all? Grandparents and a narrow circle of acquaintances? Who would a girl want to be like? The math teacher who is unpopular at school or some sex symbol? The one who captivates at least half of the world, who's talked about it in all magazines and shown on all TV screen. You see, this is where the child is at odds. Try to explain to a child that these famous people, in order to be famous and well-known models, need to excel in physics and math. Because who are the most famous and successful people in our society? They are actors, sex symbols, and rock stars.
Athletes, footballers, for instance.
Politicians, right? Gangsters, businessmen, let's be honest. These are the richest, most successful, and the most famous people in society. Now explain this children. Help them bridge the gap between the values they taught in school, like studying physics, math, biology, chemistry, and the success of these people who modern society looks up to. Do we promote honesty, modesty, hard work, or being educated in our society? No. Let's realize that children see all of us. They understand it all. They see these double standards. When we try to explain one thing to them, they see and understand that to survive in the society, you need completely different qualities, animal-like qualities. So you see, when parents say, I can't convince my child, of course you can, because we don't live the way we demand our children to live. Our children understand that. And I understand that might offend many parents now. Why are you saying this? You know, if we live in such a society where there is so much violence, where we don't even understand what education actually gives our children, in society where there are wars, where children are killed in schools, yet we keep demanding our children go to school, and focus only on that without even trying to grasp the whole situation. In this case, we need to understand that we have no right to demand that our children to be honest, polite, hardworking, and humane. Because due to our inaction and not looking into the situation, we support this inhumane format. This is what we need to understand. So I suggest that we first get to the bottom of what we are actually worried about. Just sit down and talk to each other, honestly, as adults. What are we actually talking about, and in what kind of society are we raising these education questions today? Do parents even know why their children go to school? As we said from the start, the main topic in society, the main request when consulting a psychologist is about relationship. I talk to children, but honestly, children honestly admit that there is no physics or math in their hands, but rather what I told you earlier. The child is thinking about how they will present themselves to their peers tomorrow, how much they are accepted or not accepted, how significant they are among them. So the question of relationship with their peers, with other children at school, with teachers, with parents, this question is much more important for a child than the question of physics and math, unfortunately.
More than gaining knowledge.
More than gaining knowledge. You know, I just recalled the story. Actually, I remember it because of the recent situation. For instance, a lot of dermatologists have asked me in the last 5 years, Diana, how can we help children? The younger kids, especially in primary school, but even some older ones, after 13 years old, they pull out their hair. It's like some kind of epidemic. Just imagine what a child must be going through, what internal tension they must experience to literally pull out clumps of their own hair.
To change the inner state of a child, which is on a completely different level with the help of chemistry.
Why? I had a very interesting situation when a girl's friend was so bullied at school, and this child was not treated like that, but she had a nervous tension because of the horror that her friend was going through. Her parents did not even realize it. The girl is good, smart, does well at school. I remember a story I had with my own daughter. It was the fourth, about fifth grade. She was doing very well in her studies. All the teachers were very satisfied. I heard nothing but compliments. But I noticed that one morning, the other morning, as we are going to work in the morning, the child drinks tea before school with a sandwich or porridge. Well, it's something. And then I see that she can't even drink the tea. I realize something's going on with her. We start talking. It turns out that the first lesson is physics. She's the best in class, she participates in competitions. And the teacher always likes to praise her. So what is the problem? But this teacher allows himself to grab this child and throw his head at the blackboard, throw the whole class, or throw textbooks at his head. That is just like that. If the child has not learned the lesson, has not prepared or written down something wrong, and my daughter, because she witnessed it, she was not treated like that by her teacher, but because she witnessed it, she's already tense. The fear is so strong, she can't take a sip of tea in the morning before school. Well, it's clear that we went to school after that. So when I went to the school naturally to find out about this issue and solve it once and for all, it turned out that the parents of the children being bullied didn't know what is going on. Imagine the children were afraid to tell their parents about it for fear or being bullied at home. Oh, I'm the one who pays you to go to school and you do not learn the lesson, and I'm supposed to feel red that the teacher has to. I mean, these comments from parents occur. Imagine the stress of a child. Imagine what physics or math he's thinking about or not thinking about.
This is a huge problem, by the way. Bullying is a huge problem. And the thing is that today this problem in school, it is basically spreading like wildfire at a tremendous speed and causing enormous trauma to children. A banal statistic, according to existing data, 89% of children are bullied at school, starting with the simplest, which is insulting. 89% of children, 29% of children are physically bullied at school. That's some kind of abrasions, scratches, bruises. And again, according to research and statistics, at least 30% of children prefer not to tell anyone about bullying.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, 29% are those who have already admitted it's so obvious that it was impossible to keep silent about it.
And 30% are silent because they are the ones who are being abused at school and are afraid to tell their parents. So when we go back to the statistics on antidepressants and everything else, the number of children has increased by 40%. Here's a statistic for you. So it's a fact.
Antidepressant is a separate topic.
Why is it like that? Why are children afraid? Don't they have trust in their families?
Honestly,
Yes, honestly.
most don't. Most children don't. Remember when we used to bring up the statistic on child abuse in families? But those are official statistics and they are scary. 80. Even more than 80% of small children, children under 1 year old, under 3 years old, suffer physical and mental abuse from their parents on a daily basis. And often when I talk to parents, I talk to the child. But with children, I do counseling only at the request of the child. if he really has a request, not at the request of the parents, by no means. Mostly, they are teenagers, those who really have questions and are ready to communicate and want to do so themselves. But when it's possible to communicate in general with both the child and the parents, I can say, do not even realize what their child goes through and what he or she really cares about. Unfortunately, but it's a fact, the majority of parents, obviously, in every parent's head, and in my head it was like, oh, come on. What are you telling me? I know perfectly well. No, guys, I suggest we take a closer look at these things in a human way. Really figure out what is going on with our children, what they are really resisting. This is a very important question because the parents' request for consultation is, help, we have problems with our child. If you convert it into an honest formulation, it will sound like this: help, I can't love my child, I can't understand my child. We need to understand this as adults.
As sad as it is, the conclusion that is being drawn now is, Kostya, we listened to you. Diana, we listened to you. Kostya has an understanding, information about what is happening in the education system. What result we get in the end when a child, a person, gets there. Again, that is what is called feedback. What you face, what people come to conclusion with, that is, they report, they signal these problems in one way or another. Even if not all, even if the percentage is clear, it's still a minority. The majority, as they say, try to solve this issue the old-fashioned way. I said, you go, and it's out of discussion. The only conclusion I can come up with is to burn down these schools, take the kids into families, put them all in homeschooling. I'll have everyone under my wing, under my control. I'm gonna keep my kids from getting bullied. I'm gonna keep my kids from getting bullied and stuff like that. I mean, that really comes first, doesn't it?
An instinctive reaction.
The primal reaction of any parent who seeks to take care of their offspring, but is there going to be any result from that?
You know, parents have another point of motivation that we haven't talked about. What does my child have to learn? It's my child. Did I give birth to a dumb kid? It's my pride. And pride refuses to be a pride. Because he just doesn't have motivation that a child can understand. And everything we have just said is not to burn down schools, of course. Of course, we need to study physics, math, biology, and everything else. But there must be a motivation worthy of a human being. You have to understand who is studying physics, math, and everything else. And why is he studying? Do you understand that that's the point we missed? Because, you know, if we talk about education, look, the topic of bullying, the scary topic, it's the topic of violence. I'm telling you, today's education is hell. Violence against children in every sense. And you're right, Sasha, to say that a parent's order cannot be a motivation. Go, I ordered you to go, because that's how it's done. Do you want to do things because you have to? Or maybe you want to do something you understand? Well, at least you understand. You just have to explain it to a child. And the fact when the parents say he's not interested in learning, I ask, what about you? Read the textbook that the children are reading. Your children. Are you interested? I've had enough of that.
Oh, key answer.
Let our child suffer now?
My time has passed.
My time has passed, yeah.
Now it's your turn to suffer.
Yes. Yes, and you know, we need to deal with this. What are the values in our society? In fact, the resistance of children is pushing us to what? For us to stop, for us, adults, to think about what kind of world we exist in and what is the paradigm of values in this world.
And what paradigm of values does the school stand for?
Of course, of course. For example, let's take the profession of a doctor. It's a good profession, a worthy profession. You can always earn a living, right? And parents who encourage their child to go to medical school to become a doctor, they are thinking exactly about this. Parents always want to give the best to their child, yes? Like my child will always have a piece of bread, even with butter. So if a child is a medical worker, if he is a pharmacist, if he works in the pharmaceutical business, he will always have an income. It's great. But we realize that it is the same as it will be great if people are always sick and severely ill. But for example, today, the level of medicine, the level of technology that has been discovered makes it possible to make people forget about most illnesses. It is high time for us to forget that people die from heart attack, stroke, or oncological diseases. Technologies, discoveries, and advances in this field of medicine make it possible to close this issue once and for all. And these people who have made these discoveries, this is, a worthy use of higher education, and that is education which resulted in a certain action that saves people's lives, protects people's lives, makes people's lives more comfortable, happier, that's honorable. Here is a proper motivation. But does it make sense in the society we live in? I say there is a lot of technology. I can tell you a lot about what is happening in medicine. In every sphere of human life, there are a lot of technologies, a lot of interesting discoveries that would transform human life, not just for the better, but for incredibly wonderful.
I want to know where these technologies are immediately and why we don't use them.
On the shelves. All discoveries are on the shelves.
And it's, going back to the question of motivation, it's right here. This is what I think is worthy, in my opinion, to motivate children to learn. In my opinion, when people with higher education or due to their education have made discoveries or, invested some kind of technology that has really improved the life of every person, and at the same time these people are the most famous, the most respected in our society, then it will be a motivation for children to get an education. They will understand what they are studying for.
You are talking about popularization of knowledge, and not just knowledge, but the application of this knowledge for the benefit of the whole society.
The whole society, not certain individuals, I want to clarify, but for the benefit of every person. That, to my opinion, is a worthy motivation.
We're approaching the format of society as it should be. Does the education system itself meet the modern format of society? That is part of one question. And the second question is whether it meets the needs of the people themselves. This is the second part of the question. After all, if we look specifically at the consumer format, for the consumer format we understand that the most important question is what? Money, profit, economics. Again, the very same money. Why is it being done? Because, as we said earlier, this is an artificially created system, and if it is an artificially created system, then we can say that there is such a concept as the architects of this system. That is, people who, let's say, manage, direct, or restrain the development of education itself. After all, we literally see that modern science is restrained and directed. What is all this being done for? The fact is that a well-educated, smart, intelligent, well-mannered person becomes a threat. Why? Because he starts to buy less unnecessary junk. He starts to ask unnecessary questions. He becomes, let's say, a malicious subject who, conditionally speaking, deters other people from such things. That is, when there are a lot of good, educated, decent people, the economy and consumption suffer.
That is to say, the consumer format itself.
And the consumer format itself. Why? Because, well, there are fewer people buying, there is less turnover of money in the economy. That is, well, such a person is simply not profitable for the system. But if we go back to the creative format of society, we need exactly this kind of people. The thing is, when genius, and the person is genius, and in fact, absolutely every parent needs this, there is practical evidence that every child is born a genius. And I want to emphasize he is brilliant not only in one thing. As a rule, there are several types of brilliance, and even at the early stages when the child is 5 or 6 years old, it is already possible with the help of existing tests. And if you gather all the experts in the field of psychology, you can determine that the child is brilliant in several directions. That is, we have several geniuses in every person, and it is easy to determine.
Application. All of us studied, let's say, at school. For instance, depending on the class, there are 20 to 30 students and one teacher. Of course, teachers change depending on the subject. But even if one teacher teaches his subject to 20 people, can he or she teach us anything? Yes, they can teach us elementary stuff, but after that, we have to develop on our own. In addition, we are sitting in a class and listening to a teacher. If we want to answer, we have to raise our hand. How long are we going to continue being slaves? After all, this is real slavery. Since childhood, children are like in the army. Some will say it's discipline and so on. Yes, discipline is instilled through awareness of this process, but not through compulsion. Yet, can a human who is like a soldier in the barracks, sitting before his sergeant, actually hang on his words and grasp what he is talking about? Don't be silly. How many of you have delved deeply into the subjects you have been taught? I'm addressing adults. What do you use today out of all the knowledge those teachers taught you at school? That's the answer. Do you remember many poems? Do you remember a lot of what you've read and learned? Are you familiar with physics, chemistry, and so on? Do you know why? Because there was no individual approach to everyone. I'll put it simpler. Which of you has really become a genius? Certainly, everyone thinks of himself as a genius, but what about in reality? Did you prove yourself as Einstein, Newton? Right, okay. We won't take those. But let's say Omar Khayyam and many other scientists of a seriously profound level, whose discoveries were later altered, plagiarized, and stolen by others, just like a neural network does. But I will say the following: every one of you should have really become a genius. Why? Any human being is a genius. There are no people who wouldn't be geniuses. There simply aren't. Assuming, of course, that a person is healthy, I mean, mentally, first and foremost, and so on. Genius, friends, just for you to understand, is like a fish in a lake. Until you catch it and pull it out, you don't even know if it is there or not. But I'll put it this way, there's genius in everyone. And so a neural network will be able to teach every child individually. In a free format, it means that a child can study whenever he wants, whenever it is comfortable for him. And that's where the neural network is supposed to control and monitor the child. In this process, it should encourage the child to become interested in exploring physics. In other words, yes, the child should be under the supervision of his teacher 24 hours a day. Today, this can be done, but it's a little bit difficult. Let's say with a minor development and modernization of even what we have now, it can be done easily. I mean, in the creative society. I'll put it simpler, not even in the creative society, but even in the transitional period. We can already launch every child's learning process, thanks to neural networks. And then every child will develop his or her genius, because it is the neural network that will find it. There are numerous different examples of how really outstanding teachers found talents in people and developed them. Neural networks can absorb this experience, the entire experience, and become the best educators. Then our children will be geniuses, or at least our grandchildren. After all, it's not
И дальше, когда мы, если подойдем к системе образования, какой она должна быть, то есть
And further, when we approach the education system as it should be, the education system should develop the best human qualities. We said a little earlier that modern schools and society actively support, let's put it bluntly, adaptability,
такой, вы знаете,
deceitfulness,
воровитость, да? То есть это все есть. Ну почему это есть? Потому что есть куча
thievery,
почему родители,
right?
вот,
I mean, it's all there, but why is it there?
там, физику, математику, химию,
Because there are a lot of examples of why parents, that is, it is hard for them to make their child learn physics, maths, chemistry, biology, to read, after all, an ordinary book, because children see that it is not applicable in life, that values in the society are completely different, that people who studied badly, cheated, and somehow adapted, they turn out to be popular. You know, what is often given as an example to the child? Why, for example, he goes into economics or medicine? Well, let's take economics, right? Or finance, or any other field. He is rich, he is successful, he has earned 1 or several million, for example. And on the basis of what did he earn it? If, for example, we take a stockbroker who plays on the increase of interest rates, be it on stocks, be it on some foreign currency, he, in fact, plays against the welfare of the whole state, nations. He sleeps well, he has become a millionaire, the fact that other people have suffered is ignored, as it were. But this is very man is set as an example and children see it. And then the parents' arguments that the child should study become, to put it mildly, unconvincing, because society is completely different. The values in society are completely different, and we are coming to the point where we need to change the very format of society. We need to change the values of society, and education is the most important social institution that should also serve the society by promoting the values that are important in society. Yes, this is about creativity, you know. It is about good relations between people. It's about friendship, mutual assistance, support, respect between people. It's about unification after all. Imagine, for example, if we take education, we have from the very beginning, we determined that in our country we have, in our world, let's say globally as a whole, we have 1 million brilliant physicists. We have 1 million brilliant mathematicians.
You immediately want to gather them all.
It is easy, yes, but in the consumer format, it's just for the purpose of making some new nasty things, that will kill, and will kill people massively. But in the creative format, it gives tremendous development to the whole society. That is, we again touching upon the issue of values that are forced by the school.
To me, everything you say is right. I absolutely agree. It's very important for all of us to understand that education is not something separate, right? You said education system, but education is not only what a child learns at school or institute. Education is everything that affects a person's outlook and worldview.
Yes.
So it's that paradigm of values, the dominant values in society that surrounds each of us. That's what education is.
Yes.
It's interesting that the word education comes from the word image, right? And if we look at the etymology of this word, education is the formation of an image in a certain way. It's not by chance, you see, I wanted to draw attention to this, that we need to understand how human consciousness works, how a child's consciousness works. We can tell a child anything, but a child and any human being will tend to imitate the image that gets the most attention, the image that evokes the most emotion. That's it. And so, if you want to educate your child, and education comes through images, here is what I have already mentioned. It's very important for us to understand what are images of people, what includes those images that are the most famous, the most well-known, the most respected, and so on. Well, if we take, for example, the character from movies or cartoons that children watch, try to connect the images from these movies, which have become idols for our children, with the values taught in school. Will it work? No. That's what it's about. And so, if we say it's clear that we need to change not just the education system, we need to change the format of society and the basic values in the society. But still, for our understanding, I would like to sort out this issue. Where should a person's education begin? Perhaps it should start with understanding who a person really is. Do we truly understand who are we educating today? From a specific perspective, are we educating an ape? Let's say the most advanced from all primates.
I'll probably say it more radically, but there is no human being in the modern education system.
There is an image. Why? There is an image, indeed.
Yes, there is an image.
Look, what does today's education focus on? Well, we all know that it develops the physical and intellectual abilities of whom? An animal. We're not even talking about a human being yet.
How? Wait, what animal are you talking about? Because again, there will be a question. And they will say to you, I brought a child to school. What animal are you talking about?
Yes, all right, but what do they teach the child in the same school? Darwin's theory. And according to Darwin's theory, who are we descended from? Who is a human being?
From monkeys.
From apes.
Well, I brought a child, after all. I brought an evolved ape.
The most developed animal. But still, who is called a human being today? Humans are animals. Well, let's take all the definitions that exist.
Well, a biological species at least.
A biological species. A kind of animal. Is that what the science of today teaches us? I am my body. I'm the thoughts in my head and a certain image that is polished in schools and colleges and beyond, an image that can be bullied. Because if children knew who they really were, it wouldn't be impossible to bully them.
So, if the children also knew who is doing the bullying and who is being bullied, then... But again, this question would not be so painful on the one hand, but on the other hand, there is, going back to what you said and Kostya said, without changing the format of society, many problems impossible to solve. Okay, we understand. I also like what you are saying, that there is no human in the modern education system.
No. Where is the human?
A good question.
Where was the human being in all of that?
There is a subject in psychology. There is a subject in psychology that studies the problem of the subject from early childhood, and psychology faces a dead end along with education, because it doesn't have the concept of human either.
Yes.
The subject is not the same as a human being. You're saying a child is born brilliant, with a set of talents. What are we talking about?
About a human being.
And who is a human being?
That's a good question. Do parents understand who a human being is?
I would like to return to it, because education deals with development of the physical intellectual abilities of a human being. But the body and the intellect are the animal part of a human being. This is why I said that Today's education system affirms and develops the animal qualities in a person. That's what we need to figure out. What is the main component in a human being? After all, the fascists were very educated people.
Absolutely.
My colleagues, psychiatrists, people with higher medical education gather huge audiences and using all their knowledge, all their development intellect, explain to people that pedophiles are not a disease, it's normal. Is it normal for an adult man to want to have sex with a 5-year-old child? Huge audiences sit and listen and have a question for. I have a question for parents. Do you really think it's okay for a person who has such a need to have sex with a 5-year-old child? So we need to really bring back, not only in education, not only in psychology, but also into society, the understanding of who human being is, a proper understanding of who human being is. Because if we want to develop our children's intelligence or our own intelligence, then at the very least we need to understand what intelligence is and who it serves.
And why are we developing it?
I understand that now many people think, well, of course intelligence serves us. Guys, why do we live so badly if it serves us? Why does it serve us so poorly if we develop it from school, then further at the college and believe that we have been developing it all of our lives? Why do we live so badly? I'm sorry, but when I hear from parents, from mothers who are now in Ukraine with their children and they worry about the grades their child will get and how he or she is going to school, this is the territory where a war is currently taking place. It scares me personally. It scares me very much. We learn to live in conditions of war. We teach our children to live in conditions of war, to get an education under projectiles that fly overhead. Or maybe let's start over. Let's start with the basics. Let's just make sure that wars disappear from human society forever. Because, you know, we are outraged that children are disrespectful and isolated to us. But we're not outraged that the peoples we've entrusted to govern the state are sending our children to kill other people. Is disrespecting someone cooler than killing them? That's what I suggest we think about. You know, I'll share something. I've had some interesting consultation with high school graduates over the past years. Young people have reached out to me, those with whom we talked earlier on another subject, and now, as their final years of school is ending, students from various countries have been calling with the same question, seeking help to understand this. What's more appropriate now, how to choose the right profession, how to decide what is important to do now. Children honestly say, I'm interested in this, but I realize it's not relevant today for me to survive. Parents, listen. Your children have interests. There is something they want to do, but they understand they cannot do it for various reasons. Do you understand? So I proposed the following to them, the following approach to understanding. I said, let's look at the facts. And based on these facts, each of you can make a decision. Yes, you will decide, because I can't decide for the child. Fact is, today's society is on the brink of a nuclear war. The doomsday clock hands have been moved again, and everything is approaching a culmination. Yes, and there is even worse threat, climate. The only true information about this terrible threat was voiced at the forum Global Crisis, Our Survival is in Unity. Scientists have provided their data with the precise calculations. According to these calculations, in 4 years on our planet, we will have 1,000 earthquakes per day with a magnitude and destructive force greater than those that occurred in Turkey and Syria. Let's assume that kids manage to even get into college. Let's assume they manage to study for 2 or 3 years again. Who said that the climate Cerberus will remain inactive during this time? Climate catastrophes are escalating every day worldwide. I've just given an example of earthquakes, but there are also volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, typhoons, flood, fires, and so on. Let's say a child completes 4 years of education. Can you imagine who will need his knowledge, skills, and abilities when the unimaginable horror begins? It's escalating right now if those you've entrusted with governing the world don't decide that they need to overtake Cerberus. That's one fact, one side of it. The only way to solve this issue is to build a creative society. Scientists say this is the only chance to survive and protect people and the planet, because they realistically predict that by 2036 the planet will become as lifeless as Mars. So here's one thing. Our only chance to survive, first of all, is to stop all wars. Why? Because we need the brightest scientists, the most knowledgeable, talented, educated physicists, mathematicians, and so on, who, by uniting, can find a solution to protect our lives. Right now, these people are sitting in closed laboratories and creating weapons of mass destruction. I have a question for all of us. Do you personally need them to be engaged in this? Do you really have so many enemies worldwide that you need to create weapons of mass destruction? Is there no other way to solve this issue? And if this is not your request, why are we paying for it? I often hear parents complain that they don't have enough money for education. Of course, there isn't enough money because we pay more for wars, for creating such weapons, than for education, for advancing medicine, and for everything that will please us, protect us, and make our lives comfortable. All of us, my friends, are responsible for this. We are responsible for this. And this is our greatest parental responsibility. First, create conditions for our children to receive education, be motivated to acquire that education, and genuinely enjoy it. Because when parents say that their child complains that they are not interested, I ask, are you interested? Yes, that's what we're saying. I have ceased to suffer. The thing is, are teachers interested in teaching?
No. Most of them are not.
There is no proper motivation, the kind that's worthy of a human being.
And again, we're back to that format of society where teachers have been made a laughingstock. They find themselves in conditions just like any other person. They're forced to survive in this system, and they treat their profession in the same way, simply as a means to earn money, rather than to teach because they enjoy doing it. It's just a way to earn a living. But I would like to add to what you said earlier about wars, cataclysms, that scientists are needed and that all parents want to provide education for their children. In fact, there is no problem with giving every child the highest level of education. If you eliminate at least this unnecessary segment like war, just stop wars right now and distribute the money that goes to the military industry complex among everyone, you will be surprised. For example, let's take the amount of money spent worldwide for 4 days on the military-industrial complex. That would be enough to provide an education for every child in the world. So if right now all military personnel take a week off at their own expense, then if we rationally distribute the money saved among the children, and we have them at the moment, according to statistics, 25% of the world's population, this money will be enough to get an excellent quality education for every child in the world. Not just from bell to bell, but really high-quality education with excellent textbooks and incredible technology, even with the help of artificial intelligence. Right now, there are already programs that can customize education for every child based on their talents, whether in physics, mathematics, music, art, or whatever, by using artificial intelligence to create a unique trajectory for their development and learning. We will get a completely different world. And that's easy.
Sure, right. There's one fact we have. If we still, taking into account the catastrophes, if we won't unite, as scientists suggest, if we ourselves should have realized that it's time to come to our senses, then let's take the second option. Children should understand the fact. Let's assume that people have come to their senses all over the world and have built creative society. The creative society is set up based and oriented on the fact that human life is the most important value. This means that all the latest technologies, all the achievements that are already available today will be implemented as quickly as possible. Yes, conditions will be created for all the scientists to really develop for the benefit of people. And then there will be no need for many professions that exist today. Because, for example, the achievements of medicine, they already allow to make people healthy. If people don't get sick, there will be no need for money, so many doctors, and so on. In general, today there are already many facts that artificial intelligence can successfully replace humans in almost any profession, and thanks God, it can serve people from slave labor. I mean, what am I saying? We should not be afraid of this, by the way. I'm talking about the brilliance that is inherent in everyone, the abilities that we discover through research that it turns out we have. So we will have the conditions to unlock the enormous potential of every human being, and there will be completely new conditions. What do I mean? We have two ways out of the situation in which we find ourselves. Either everything will be destroyed, and then I don't see the point in thinking about what institute my child will study in. We need to think about whether my child will survive. This is a much more important task now. The second point is that if we turn out to be reasonable people, or at least reasonable people, and build creative society, then the perspective is open for us. So there is no point in studying to be a doctor, for example. And it takes 5 to 7 years to study for it, because by the time there will be technologies that will allow us to take care of human health on a completely different level, and we will have to study completely different things. But this is good, because if we go back to understanding who a human being is and what potential is actually hidden in each person, it is much more than the development of intellectual abilities. I was talking to one dad, and he said, "My son doesn't want to learn math." I said, "Do you learn math?" "Yes, I did very well." I said, "Are you happy?" "No." "What's math got to do with it?" "Math has nothing to do with it. But it's all about what's more important, being happy. Or knowing math better than anyone else in the world. No, you can certainly be happy mathematician, but does a lot of good things for other people, but if you learn math, physics, and any other science without knowing yourself, you will never be happy. If a person has all the money in the world, as much money as he wants, becomes the famous person, we see examples. They are not happy if he doesn't know the answer to the question, who am I? That is, the path to happiness lies through knowing yourself through answering the question, who am I? A human being. Human is the highest, in the highest sense, human with a capital letter, that is, and the way of cognition of oneself, it definitely results in God. It will definitely result in truth. It will definitely result in love. And in fact, love is the main science which a man should comprehend. And this is exactly what will allow you to bring back
Счастье в обществе.
Happiness in society.
peace in society. At least peace in society, yes, and to bring back humaneness in relationship between people, that's what they're striving for, right? The key question. And that's what will allow us to remain ourselves as a human being, happy
Это
human
естественное
being.
состояние.
This is his natural state.
Yes, it will allow the development of science for the benefit of people.
Человек, он действительно
Human is really unique by nature, and from the point of view of even the same artificial intelligence, he is unpredictable. But he is unpredictable when a person acts guided by the spirit. When a person acts according to the will of his consciousness, his behavior will always be like a pattern. It's easy to predict.
Predictable.
Even today, we talked about parents acting in pattern. Children don't understand why they go there, and it's everywhere. What does that tell us? It shows that there is a systemic problem. It shows that there is a systemic pattern in the way we live our lives. It speaks about the presence of systematicity in our lives, and we do not study this systematicity. But the creative society changes the attitude towards humans, and it gives an opportunity to cognize ourselves holistically. Indeed, as Kostya said, it also gives an opportunity to discover the world around us by cognizing ourselves. So then the same physics, maths, astronomy, biology will become completely different. Well, I won't go far. Psychology will become completely different. What we've been talking about for several years is absolutely changing the focus now, radically. The subject of study becomes a human being, not a subject for the sake of getting something. And having already spoken about humanity today more than once, having spoken about scholarship, you and I know and understand perfectly well why humanity is so important. And it is not for nothing that there is a saying, take the humanity out of science,
Everything is useless.
yes, and it will become a lethal weapon. What we have today.
на самом
But
деле,
it's good. He's actually, I'm very grateful to you
тем, чем вы поделились, те
and what
вопросы,
you've shared,
которые
the
задали
questions you've
слушатели.
asked
Но,
and
как
voiced.
говорится, буду,
But,
буду
as they say, I'll be honest, what should we do about homework?
Ну, то есть, всё хорошо.
Well, it's okay. What should I do about homework? My child is going to school tomorrow. I'm going to face this situation again. What should I do?
And this is a decision that each person has to make based on the fact that we have voice today, you know? Actually, when I was talking to the guys, I told them the fact that they made the decision. 16-year-old kids, well, maybe not kids anymore, but we consider them as kids. They were able to make a choice and decision based on these facts by themselves. Well, interesting decision. So, dear parents, you will decide what to do with your homework based on the fact that we have shared today. You can explore them further if you're interested. It's really worth it. That is your choice, a personal choice of what to spend the precious time on. What to spend the precious time of their children. What should we prepare them for? I would suggest striving to get the most important education to become a human being, no matter how much time is left. I know that as much as possible we should devote to become a human being. And I would suggest building a society in which the main value will be a human being who loves God.
I can advise parents just to love your child. Homework is not the most important thing in the child's life. Yes, at the moment it seems very important to the children, something that they can't live without it.
Просто любите своего ребенка.
Just love your child. If you have a chance to explain this homework, help him, explain it to him. Help him, even if it is a collaborative solution, but help your child to gain a sense of confidence that he can do it. It is important that with every homework assignment, with every overcoming of some difficult task or something else, the child feels this support. When a parent loves his child and helps him learn to love, we will have the society like that. Do you understand? That is when we give some hope to a child, help him, her to feel that he, she has strength, that he, she strong, that he, she is efficient, that he, she can. It is important. But help him gain confidence in himself. And through this love, the child will be the same. And we will have the same society. Do you understand? When we live with completely different values, do you understand? This is important because in education, yes, it is important to know math. It is important to know some basic physics. You need to know how chemistry works, for example. You need to know how the human body works, biology, the surrounding biological world around us. But what is important, first of all, are the universal spiritual values. They are not transmitted through pages in books or at school. It is everywhere. It is what is called to make a human out of a man. But it is possible when parents are involved in it, when they help, when they do it through their example, their mutual help, their love, their care, and just do it. Children are the ones who are becoming the same. I said before that children make up 25% of the world's population, but we all realize that they are 100% of our future. That's why it is important for parents to love their children, not to force them through violence, through threats, through blackmail, through manipulation to learn something, to do homework. Homework is a tool that helps you to learn how to communicate with your child. Every parent also learns to be a parent, learns to communicate with their child. This is also an important part because children will then communicate with their children using the same examples, either authoritatively force them to do the homework or help their child to become better. And this is also part of education. After all, education is not just a school, it is also a family, it is a relationship. In fact, today we have touched upon the topic of education and how should it be in a creative society. It should become not just a standard education system, but a culture of self-improvement. We said that an important aspect is that by discovering oneself, a person also learns the world around him. This is the culture of self-improvement, a culture of development, in which it becomes real when we, first of all, love, when we help, when we support, when we motivate, when we somehow try to encourage, support, convince with a kind word, a still unformed personality, that you can believe in yourself. That is right. But it starts with love to each other.
Thank you. Well, Diana, thank you very much. Kostya, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't know how you feel, but I personally found it very interesting and informative to hear the points of view of our experts. Friends, please, if you ever have any questions about education, write in the comments. We understand that this is, let's say, only a small part of the questions you are interested in. We understand everything very well, both from the point of view of psychology and from the point of view of pedagogy. There are still many questions that would be worth discussing, that we would like to sort out, to put on the shelves, so that more or less every person would have an understanding of what to choose. So, don't be shy. Write honestly what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want us to analyze, not only in the topic of education, and we will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you, and see you again.
And it's not just about the sphere of teaching. A neural network can prove itself in so many professions today, and much better than a human. So ultimately we should shift all our routine work onto robots, onto neural networks, while people themselves should really enjoy life and evolve. Is that a bad thing?
What a beautiful world. This is wonderful information. We couldn't even imagine how beautiful a world could be with 8 billion geniuses living in it.
Why 8? Why not 50 billion? It is in the consumerist format that we have 8 billion people and it is claimed that it's too many, while in the creative society even 50 billion won't be enough, because the prospects that are opening up before humankind require a huge number of people. As of today, it is actually a problem for us to fly to the moon, not to mention Mars. That very hypothesis, which will be voiced at the forum, Global Crisis, There is a Way Out, opens up such opportunities and such horizons for smart people that even going to another galaxy is like visiting a neighbor. There are still a lot of interesting discoveries ahead, and we actually face a huge choice right now. This is a fact. And what we as humanity choose is what will happen. I now address all people of faith. Will we choose what the prophets commanded us, or will we choose the future of Satan? It is our choice. Or simply put, will we create what the prophets wanted to create here? Or will we literally throw this world of ours into hell? It's all in your hands, friends. But still, I wish there was an Eden here, right?
I wish that so much.
I wish there was the Medina Charter all over the world, and that we all live by the commandments of the great prophets, and just love one another, right?
It's time to turn our pace into a run in order to build the creative society.
That's right, because everything depends on all of us. I'll put it this way, only uninformed people separate us from our beautiful and happy future. So, everything is in our hands, friends. Let's just love each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Igor Mikhailovich.
Thank you, friends. Peace be with you and the creative society.